Finally, a bed that senses snoring and automatically responds. Meet the Ergo Smart Base from Tempur-Pedic, our first system that detects snoring, then automatically adjusts by raising the bed. Get your best sleep all night, every night. Now, save up to $500 on select adjustable mattress sets during the Tempur-Pedic Black Friday event. Get full offer details at TempurPedic.com.
Hey guys, it's Allie. Welcome back to Infertile AF, the podcast. This is episode 141 called Tara B. Today's episode is brought to you by Belly, prenatal vitamins that help get your body the healthiest it can be to welcome a new little life. Belly's vitamins are formulated to optimize fertility and prenatal health for men and women through all stages of pregnancy, from conception through to post-pregnancy. Belly's revolutionary science-based formulation fuels your fertility to help support egg quality, promote hormonal balance, and increase your overall fertility health. Belly for Men prenatals are specially formulated with clinically proven nutrients optimized to help increase sperm count, help improve sperm morphology and motility, and boost overall fertility. To get started with Belly, go to bellybaby.com and use code ALLIE15 for 15% off your first month of either Belly Women or Belly Men. Again, it's bellybaby, BELIBABY.com, and use code ALLIE15, ALI15, for 15% off. Thanks, Belly. I'm so excited to tell you guys about the sponsor for today's episode, Vios Fertility Institute. Vios is a different fertility clinic experience built on a foundation of patient-centered care, evidence-based medicine, and innovative technology. With clinic locations throughout the country and patients from around the globe, the Vios Fertility Institute team understands the challenges of infertility. Their physicians are board-certified and fellowship-trained reproductive endocrinologists and infertility specialists with a passion for helping patients realize their dreams of parenthood. As a patient, you'll notice the difference from your very first phone call to the team celebration of your positive pregnancy test and everything in between. Vios prides itself on its individualized patient plans that are best suited for your emotional, physical, and financial needs. The organization is committed to their patients and the fertility community in general, and to that end, offers great resources and education on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and other social media channels. Look for Vios Fertility, as well as a patient-centered blog on their website at viosfertility.com. To learn more about Vios Fertility Institute, take advantage of that high-quality, incredible education and fertility information, or to schedule your first appointment, visit viosfertility.com. That's VIOSFERTILITY.com. Thanks, Vios. Okay, guys. So today's guest, Tara Brandner, is a nurse practitioner and an infertility warrior turned full-time fertility coach. And like so many of you guys, she has endured a long road through infertility, followed by treatments and a very traumatic pregnancy. And today she's going to tell us all about it. Also, Tara has such a big heart. She is giving away a free 60-minute coaching session with her. So head over to my Instagram, which is at Infertile AF Stories, and you can find out all the details. And she has such a big heart. She really wants to help people. That's why she's telling her story. That's why she's giving away a session. And that's one of the reasons I adore her. So without further ado, this is Tara's infertility story. So Tara, it's so good to talk to you. How are you, girl?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you. You had me on your show not too long ago, and then we lined up this one too. So it's so great to just share each other's stories and get to know each other better and like reach out to the community. So thank you for doing this.
Absolutely.
So let's start. We're going to talk about what you do now and everything, but let's start at the beginning. Did you always want to have kids?
I did. And it wasn't this like burning passion though of mine, because I was very goal orientated. I was a nurse. Actually, I was in nursing school when I met my husband. And if there's any nurses listening, you know how rigorous that can be. And so then I knew from day one of being in nursing school, because I came from an area where nurse practitioners were key in the community. I knew that, and I knew going forward into my career that I had many years of schooling ahead of me. And there was really no reason to indicate or think that I would have issues starting my family. And so it was just full speed ahead. Let's do school, get that doctorate degree, and do that phase of life, because I knew I was not someone who could balance family and school. I couldn't do it in high school. I definitely knew I could not do it. I went through life. And so I just knew that I was going to do school and career first, and then move into having a family and starting that journey. And that was when we realized something wasn't right, wasn't working.
Yeah. So were you not getting pregnant, or had you had a loss, or like what was going on specifically?
So I always say, we were like, oh, we did what everybody does, try, we're going to try on our own, because there was no reason indicating that it wouldn't work. And so about 8 months in of trying, we experienced a miscarriage at 7 weeks. And it's hard for me to even like explain, because most men, I think, are like black and white. Let's just do what we're told. Let's go for this. And so there was no time for grieving during that time. I felt I felt a rut. I was in a rut for about 2 months. So we kept trying, had the miscarriage, and I kind of suppressed a lot of feelings. Fast forward 2 months, we keep trying. And I'm noticing this like emotional, like unsettled feeling about this loss. And then my medical brain's kicking in at the same time too. Cause I'm like, why did I have a miscarriage? There's nothing, no family, and not that family history necessarily matters, but I was just trying to rack through my brain every possible thing. There's no family history of miscarriage. And so I went to my OBGYN's office. Now I did not get my OBGYN. I got her physician's assistant. And I was met with resistance. And I had said, I'm concerned. We are now at a year, it was pretty much a year at that point, because we had continued trying after the miscarriage. We had a miscarriage. Like, what's going on? What do you recommend? Her words to me were, well, because you live so far, we live 120 miles one way from our OBGYN's office. We are in rural North Dakota.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But to us, it's not a big deal. Like, that's just like part of commuting.
That's so awesome that you're so like in such an interesting place to live. Yeah.
It is. It's just kind of like, okay, you can go 75 miles that way, but you don't have that, for healthcare services or stores or shopping, but you can go 120 miles and you have all the things. So we had just known when we started our journey to conceive, I, of course, wanted to be someplace, not expecting that I would need it, but where there was a NICU. Should you become pregnant, I want to be in a hospital that has access to a whole, healthcare team right away. So, and she's like, well, if you start any other treatments, like if you want to do some oral medications or IUIs, you're going to have to travel 120 miles. So why don't you just wait till you're crazy enough, and then you can come and we can start conversation. And
oh my gosh, did she say that?
Literally said to me, when you're crazy enough.
Wow.
Little did she know I had recently, because I caught myself. So it was 2 months after the miscarriage. I caught some emotional stuff, and I had already made a counseling appointment, because I knew I was not, I felt a shift into a not healthy mental space. She made that comment to me. And I instantly, that was when I hit my point. It was that phone conversation. I contacted my OB directly, and she was kind enough to call me on a Sunday. And that was a Friday. And then she called me on a Sunday, and she's like, you are done here. We are shifting clinics. It is time for you to move to a reproductive endocrinologist. So that May of 2015 is when we started our actual workup with reproductive at our first clinic, and was introduced to that whole reproductive endocrinology world.
So what did they tell you when you went in for that first appointment? Were they able to diagnose, or was it still just like lots of questions?
So at that point, I was diagnosed with unexplained infertility.
Right. Which isn't really even a diagnosis. It's like, we just can't figure it out.
It literally isn't.
Right.
Okay, here's the deal. I diagnose people every day of my nurse practitioner life. I can't give them unexplained insert whatever system or disease. Like, I just can't do that. That's just like, so to me, it's super frustrating to be like, sorry, I don't know what's going on with you, but yeah, let's just throw spaghetti on the wall and try this. Like, that's just like, I don't get to do that with any other disease that I work with. I mean, of course you try medications and things, but you have a solid diagnosis. There's something that indicates there is a disease or something going on with other systems.
Right. Totally.
And we'll get into this, but let's not talk about the insurance coverage aspect of this whole frustration part too.
I know so many people listening right now have been told they have unexplained infertility. And it's like, that doesn't fucking help me. Like,
no.
What do I do next?
I don't want to say makes it worse, but it's like another level of mush to like. So started with the reproductive clinic. They call it unexplained. They decide because of costs and just some other, situation, like just other things. She's like, let's just do IUI instead of oral medication. So we jumped in to oral medicated with our first clinic. And so June was our first round. We did Femera, trigger shot, failed. And I was like, okay. At that point I was kind of like, all right, let's go next round.
Right.
So round 2, July, IUI number 2, Femera, trigger shot, failed. And I'm like, okay, we got to change something up here. Like, and I advocated because that's just in me. And this is where I get very like, I encourage everybody to just advocate. If something doesn't feel right at any point in your treatment, advocate for a change. So I was like, there's got to be a change up here. I'm not okay with continuing with this current protocol that we're on. So August 2016. Now, the one thing I did not like about my first clinic was I never got this. I had picked a doctor, saw her the first time, and never saw her again other than one other time. I saw the other doctors or other providers. And I didn't realize how much that bothered me till round 3 of August. So I feel like I could write an entire chapter of a book based on August of 2016. I think I said 2015 earlier, but we started in 2015. We moved into treatment in 2016.
Right. Like, what year is it anyway? Who cares? Right.
I don't even know. What's funny? Like, I had this timeline in front of me and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is kind of triggering looking at this, but
I know. I said it was 2012 the other day when I was talking to someone. They're like, what? And I was like, oh wait, 2021. Okay. Sorry.
Just bear with me with the numbers, right?
Sure.
So I advocated for changing the protocol. So they added Untitled AF. And so when I jumped on the telemedicine call, telemedicine was actually happening back then already because I went to a facility where I could do telemedicine and some monitoring with them. And they're like, hey, Kristen, how you doing? And I was like, my name's Tara. They had the wrong chart in front of them.
Awesome.
In front of them. And I was like, oh, here we go. Okay. Shake it off, Tara.
Off to a good start.
Off to a good start. Okay.
Right.
So we're going to add Untitled AF. And he's the doctor. So we do the protocol, do the stuff. Okay. Time comes, another appointment for this round, before we are about ready to start the medication. And this new doctor, so another doctor, not the first one, says, we're going to send Untitled AF down to your pharmacy. I was like, no, don't. They won't be able to get it in. Like, I'm in rural North Dakota. I send scripts there all the time as a professional. Trust me, they can't get this one in. Oh, yes. You have 2 days. They'll be able to get it in. I go, no, I promise they can't. He's like arguing with me. And so he sends it there anyway. Okay. So I drive 90 miles home, go to the pharmacy, double check. And they're like, Tara, we can't get this in. It's a specialty. It's going to take, blah, blah. I was like, I knew it. So it's now, I think 3 p.m. And they're like, we'll just send it back up to the town you came from. We checked. They have some on hand. All right. Jump back in the car, drive 90 miles again. And so drive back to this community again, get to the pharmacy. It's like 10 to 5. I specifically remember this. And he's like, we have the cartridges, like the pen, like the pack of pens. We don't have the medication. He's like, that's a specialty medication. We have to, it's 5 o'clock. I need this med in like 2 days. So he goes, there's a specialty pharmacy. We'll send it to you, have it shipped there. They'll send it overnight to your home. okay, frustrated at this point because of the driving, whatever. Here we go. So get the medication, doing the things, time for trigger shots. So this is all IUI number 3 still. It's 10 o'clock at night. Actually, once again, remember the exact time. 10:20 was my trigger shot time.
Mm-hmm.
And the tornado siren goes off.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, okay, well, my husband and I, fun fact, we're both scared of tornadoes. And our house actually has like a legit cellar in it. And so we're like, all right, shoes on. He grabs a blanket. Oh my gosh. Okay. I grab the trigger shot. He's like, just leave it, Tara. I'm like, no, I will not just leave it. Like, first of all, the chance of a tornado actually being out there is probably pretty slim. I was like, we're doing this. So it is 10:20 p.m. in the tornado cellar, and I'm giving my trigger shot. So at whatever, we're done. So in the midst of all of this, I do call work. So I work in a rural healthcare facility. I do clinic, hospital, ER, the whole thing. We are short providers. So I am struggling to find somebody to cover my shift for this entire third round, every appointment too. And there's a traveler locum provider here. And I'm like, this is where I have to actually, for the first time, tell a complete stranger what I'm going through in order to ask him if he can cover my shift for me and stay a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And the sweetest gentleman. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to do it. You have to like pep yourself up. Like, I need this off, but like, I feel like I'm going to vomit because I have to tell a complete stranger what we're going through. And he puts his arm on my shoulder and he says, Tara, my daughter went through IVF.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, you take as much time as you need. I will stay here for you. And it was like, I get like gooses talking about it, but it was just like, whoa, like, if you open up and just talk, Tara, like, it's okay. It's fine. Like,
right. It's so funny how you have these connections to people that you never thought you would have been connected to when you're going through something like this.
No. And a funny connection about this particular doctor, and we'll get to later in my story, but he travels to a bunch of different facilities around here. And he ended up caring for me when I did become pregnant, but had a bleed and had to get life flighted out. So he's the same doctor
Oh my God.
that ended up caring for me in that time. Stayed in touch and shared pictures and all the things, but it truly is like the connections and the barriers that come down with just a little, I need help.
Absolutely.
That kind of thing.
Yeah. So what happened next?
Tornado siren, gave the shot, go to do the IUI. And my husband and I are literally laying there and we're like, yeah, this is done. Like, this is jacked. This is stupid. Like, what are we even doing here? Like, we literally laid there and we were just shook our head. Like, we just jinxed the whole thing. Day one, I feel like, was just done, defeated. So here walks in a student and I'm all about students because, that's been my name of the game for 9 years of my career was, getting in on patient cases and being that student. And she gets, and they use metal speculums, and there's something cringy as I'm talking about a metal speculum versus a plastic one, like nails on the chalkboard for me. And she cannot get my cervix. This is not uncommon. So I'm like, but I'm really full and heavy from that Gonal F. And she is just digging. And my husband can tell in my face. And he goes, ma'am, can you just let the doctor do it? Like, he steps in and
my God.
Like, we understand you're a student, but can you just let the doctor do it?
Again, it's funny how you remember all these little specific things, right? That like are seared into your brain.
Just forever, like the times as I'm talking about it here today. I'm like, yeah, it literally was 10:20 and it was literally 10 minutes to 5. Like it was just this like time. Yeah. They're stamped in your head. And so did the whole laid there and we just were like, okay, whatever happens, but we know this isn't working. And we decided laying on the table, third IUI, we are taking a break because it just got to a point of, the travel and this isn't working. And it just didn't feel like this was going to be continued. And so we, in the meantime, at my place of work, just the work that I do, I interact with patient families at various stages of their life. And I was introduced, and lo and behold, he went to high school with my parents, a embryologist. And it was after that, time. And he said, Tara, have you looked at this website, start.org? And I was like, what are you talking about? What is this website? And he really took hours with us and explained infertility, IVF, statistics of clinics, what makes clinics stand apart, things you should know, and he goes, I'm glad you did that third IUI, but you should maybe consider, a second opinion. And he works for one of the top reproductive clinics in the country. And he's from my little town in North Dakota. And it's just, I'm like, yeah, don't let space or where you're from really define what you can do.
Right.
And so that was in August. We failed our third and final IUI, took a timeout break. I had been previously selected to do a month-long health policy fellowship in Washington, D.C. with the American Association of Nurse Practitioners. So it was perfect timing to just step away. Little did I know how that would play a role in my future. But we did, in the meantime, plan to do a appointment with a new reproductive endocrinologist that October when I came back from that. And we switched clinics and moved into IVF. And it was at that new appointment, he goes, Tara, I was really digging through your chart, because I had sensed from multiple clinics, which I thought I had did the first time. I, to this day, have no clue. But he's like, you had endometriosis when you were 20 years old and they had a cyst in the laparoscopic procedure. And I was like, well, I remember that I had this like procedure in the cyst and it was no big deal. We drained it, carry on, never was told anything else. He's like, it shows on here you have endometriosis. I was like, nice. Okay. Didn't even know that was on there. So it wasn't until that I found out I actually have endometriosis. And now that I know, back then, even the more I learned about endo, I was like, my mom has it. My sister has it. Like,
right.
This is what I have. And so we decided to move forward with IVF. We also decided to move forward with Depo-Lupron. So that is a monthly shot that I did for my endometriosis for 2 months prior to it was put in my protocol from early on before we even decided to do a transfer. And I feel like it was my magic dust. I talk about Depo-Lupron as much as I can. There's some studies actually going on, research studies comparing Depo-Lupron with an oral medication called Orlissa. And so there's just more coming out on endometriosis and infertility as well.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So we just move forward, IVF, egg retrieval that January of the new year of 2017. And I just felt, first of all, they knew my name. It was not Kristen. But
that's essential.
That's essential that was checked. But it just had this whole new vibe to it. Like, I didn't have to question my doctors or what was going on or second guess anything. I knew where my meds were coming from. There was just, I felt like, and for me and maybe any medical personnel listening, it's super hard to turn that off. And I felt like I could be a patient for once. I didn't have to second guess everything. And so I think it's really important for anyone and everyone to feel like they can fully 100% trust their doctor and their clinic. But especially when you have this like little other voice on your shoulder, second guessing stuff medically,
right?
To find a place where you can just shut that off. And I had finally found it.
And that's so important. And for people listening, just like the self-advocating, arming yourself with as much education and information as you can. And, with so much on Instagram right now and, such a big community, I feel like it's easier than ever to connect to people that are specific to what you're going through, which is great.
Absolutely. And I will confess, I was on Facebook groups, in the midst of all of this and comparing, like even I did that. So to know if you're doing that, it's normal.
Right.
But there's other things we can do to help shift you away from having to do that and having to like be your own medical provider essentially and trying to figure out all the things there's other ways we can view other than that.
Definitely. It's hard not to compare sometimes. It's totally normal, but it's if you can avoid going down that spiral of like, well, her numbers were this and mine was this, I feel like sometimes it just gets, you get in your own head too much, and, it starts to go down like this spiral of anxiety and all that.
100%. And it was actually, when I found Instagram for the first time, was right around this time. I used the hashtag our clinic. I don't know if I can say what clinic, but I was like, hashtag clinic name. And that was how I found one. And then two, and it like shifted from there, people who had been going to that same clinic. And we were kind of on the same track for treatment. And so as I travel to out of state to go there, we met up for supper. And like, that was where my first human interaction happened, because I was not open about this. I live in a small town where we just don't talk about intimate or personal things as a community culture, if that's how you want to refer to it as. And I did open up about it at the end of my third IUI. Like when I said I had to tell that other doctor what I was going through. And then I opened up to my 6-person clinic, and my secretary was going through almost the same treatment I was at the same time, having miscarriages. We were both silent and quiet about it. So not only did I get him as a support person, but I got her, and it was like, with us both going through it, the clinic shifted and was more open and receptive and supportive about it as well. It was like, I got a new support system after that failed third IUI, but it was really lonely up until the point, going through miscarriage, going through failed treatment, stuffing it, swallowing it. And in fact, I did open up to another provider about it earlier, round 2. And I was met with a comment, you going through treatment is really inconvenient to our schedule. And so that made me suppress. I forgot all about that till I started rambling here, but I was met with resistance because we were short staffed, and it was a lot of time away because of the travel. The closest facility for me to get my monitoring done was 90 miles away. Most were 120. The clinic was 220 miles away. So it was not only, time, quick run, go do your thing, come back. No, it was days that I had to take off. Right. And I was met with, I wish you weren't, that's really inconvenient that you're going through treatment because it's hindering our schedule. Well, wow. Sorry. Thanks. Sorry. So between being called when you're crazy enough, that it's like, no wonder people don't talk about it. And I know, if you know me personally, I'm pretty darn open about all of this now. So for me to not even be open about it goes to show how isolating this whole experience can be. And it takes one comment from one person to shut you down and stop you from sharing. Yep. Right. Absolutely. Done.
Finally, a bed that senses snoring and automatically responds. Meet the Ergo Smart Base from Tempur-Pedic, our first system that detects snoring, then automatically adjusts by raising the bed. Get your best sleep all night, every night. Now, save up to $500 on select adjustable mattress sets during the Tempur-Pedic Black Friday event. Get full offer details at TempurPedic.com.
So true.
So we move in January, new year, start IVF. So our egg retrieval, we had endometriosis. They looked at me. They didn't put me on a really high protocol. It was like 17 eggs retrieved. I believe 11 fertilized. We did do genetic testing. So we had 6 sent for that. Came out with 2 healthy embryos, a boy and a girl. Because that was the time where they were just starting, I remember, to tell you gender. We were like, it must have been like that new year, 2017. We're going to start telling people genders if they want it. Right. So we knew the genders of our embryo. And at that point, we were told, prior to that, we would only do 1 embryo transfer. And then we re-met with him after my 2 months of Depo-Lupron. So I did the Depo-Lupron in January and February of that year, which, wow, let's have a whole session on the side effects of that. Like, once again, I would do it all over again because I swear it was the magic dust. I just wish I would have more that I was literally going to go into menopause. Every symptom of menopause I was in for 2 months. Depression, anxiety, hair loss, night sweats, skin changes. Right. Oof. So I always tell my patients that are in menopause, I actually know what you're going through. And they're like, what? No, you don't. I'm like, I actually do. I was in it for 2 months. So we met again, regroup April. And he's like, I really feel you guys should just transfer both. It's not worth, because of the grading. And I have the grades and all those magic numbers tucked away just because that was kind of triggering for me. But I actually met not only with our doctor, but our friend who's an embryologist. He was there for the retrieval. He was there for the transfer. He was there for like every aspect of our journey too.
Mm-hmm.
And our first transfer was supposed to be Easter. And he was like, that's fine. I'll come in, like willing to come in on Easter for us, and decided to do two because they basically, long and short, due to the grade, like she's either the boy was better graded than the girl. And they're basically like, she's either going to implant or she's not. And the conversations that we had about twins was, okay, we do live 120 miles from a NICU and all the things. And I was just like, yeah, that's fine. Like, It's okay. I'm willing to take that risk. I'm confident in this. And so we actually moved forward. April of 2017, our first transfer, it was canceled. And here comes like another chapter to a book, I feel, because as you know, I had to travel. So in 1 week's time, I drove 1,200 miles because I had to go to multiple different labs because of ultrasound errors. Like they'd get sent to my clinic and they were like, Tara, we don't agree with the reading, but we have to go with it. And then the lab work was messed up. My estrogen was like a hair off from being, to canceling it. Even the second round, transfer number 2 after that cycle was canceled. When we went at it again, I had to travel to 2 different clinics again because he was convinced it was like a machine error or something like that.
Yeah.
And so canceled, that transfer. Now, because of we did have, you have to think about too, like airline tickets and all that stuff that was on the line. Right. We had a deal where we could, get the money back or whatever. We paid more, did that whole thing. I kept mine and ended up going on a ski trip with my cousin. And so I kept my ticket, went skiing with my cousin and just took that time to just take time for me, do something I love that I hadn't been able to do for 2 years at that point. Like we went once or twice a year as a family since I've been 3 years old. And this was the first time I had been in a situation where I couldn't go, was going through treatment, cost, travel, all the things and reasons why you put off things you love. And so our first FET was canceled and I did that. And it was so refreshing. And it was like, you sit there and you're like, who was I? Who am I? What is going on? Like,
Where did I go? Yeah.
Where did I go? Caught up in the hustle and bustle. And like you said, face down, let's do this. What do I got to do? Go, 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 go. Let's do it. And so came back from that. I actually fought. Like, this is where I think I became my own advocate hardcore once again. But I was so mad about what had happened with my ultrasounds in that cycle that I actually fought the facility because there's also price gaps and gouging. I don't know if that's the right term for it, but they charge $300 more than the facility next door to them. They're the same bubble or same facility. They have 2 hospitals in the state. Huge price difference. And once again, $200 difference from if I drive the other direction, 200 miles, difference in ultrasound prices.
Yeah. That's one thing I didn't know is that you don't have to necessarily go with the lab or the pharmacy or, the technician that your clinic recommends. Like, you can make a choice and go somewhere else. So it's another thing just to tell people listening to do some research and see if there might be a cheaper pharmacy or a cheaper clinic that does testing, or a cheaper lab that does testing rather.
Yes, 100%. I believe in reproductive medicine, you need to find ultrasound techs, facilities, clinics, whatever it may be, that does uteruses often, to completely read that lining. So to have my clinic, like I said, because that's just me. I sent the images down the second I put them on a disc. Right after that, sent it to the clinic, was waiting for the final call to cancel it or go forward with it. And they go, Tara, we agree. Your lining looks good to us, but we cannot override that radiologist read was devastating. And so from there on out, I drove the opposite direction, more miles to get a better read at a clinic that I knew did this day after day, hour after hour. And that was what they did all the time.
Right.
So we moved into, went on the ski trip, did all of that, and moved in May 2017, did our, finally was able to do our transfer. I added acupuncture, affirmations, really worked on mindset at that point, was introduced to mindset techniques and things, and transferred our only 2 embryos. And we had our first ultrasound confirming that one baby, had implanted. And I think that was an emotional time as well, because I was grieving the loss of an embryo. It's such a hard thing to excited and grieving at the same time, and not, having that fine line of excitement and fear going on.
Right. I think that's one of the really complicated things, right? Is like one of them is sticking, one is not. Like, it's heartbreaking, but you're happy, but you're guarding your heart and you're sad. It's like all the feelings.
100%. And, then move into pregnancy after all of that. And it's
right.
I don't know if I was excited. And then when I did get excited at 32 weeks, here, you're going to have a bleed. I experienced it. I woke up one morning and just blood gushing, got life flighted to my OB 120 miles away, still get triggered when I hear a helicopter, to this day.
I bet.
Thankfully, everything was fine. And we continued to 39 weeks, ended up with an emergency C-section. But it's just one of those things where I've created this whole, when I talk to people and I'm like, it's okay to not be excited after infertility. And then when you're pregnant, there's so many emotions attached to pregnancy after infertility.
Yeah. We talk a lot about that in Fertility Rally too now, because a lot of our members have become pregnant, and we know that the anxiety doesn't end there. It's, in many cases, it just takes on a totally different form.
So strangely enough, and maybe this isn't so strange, because I feel like many could relate to this, I was not excited. I was scared. I take that back. I was excited for like an hour after the phone call. And then I felt like fear crept back into my life, because it was obviously very early. You have to schedule the ultrasound. You have to keep checking your betas. I also was told early on from my reproductive doctor that they were going to be doing ultrasounds from 12 weeks on, because it questioned like my cervical competence. Interesting term, but they had questioned that with me. So I already knew going into this pregnancy that there was going to be a lot of monitoring. And keep in mind, once again, I live 120 miles one way to my OB. So that's a lot of extra. And it was winter time, and winter in North Dakota, need I say more? So there was just a lot of extra added things on top of, we're pregnant. Yay. And so I moved into those 12 weeks. Everything was going well. I still was not excited. I was thinking, I believe it wasn't until 37 weeks of pregnancy where I actually got excited. And that's because at 32 weeks, I experienced a bleed. I woke up one morning. I was supposed to be on call at 7 a.m. As a nurse practitioner, I do ER coverage, hospital coverage. And it was about 7:15. I can picture this to the day where I was at. And I woke up to go bathroom, and I heard, it sounded like water pouring into the toilet, but I wasn't peeing. And I looked down, and the toilet was there was tons of blood in there. And I was sitting on the toilet, and I was trying to triage myself. We'll call what do I do? Who do I call? Oh my gosh, what is going on? I'm supposed to be on call in 45 minutes. And I'm bleeding. What do I do? So I actually called a provider I work with first before my doctor to see if she could take call coverage. Thankfully, she did. It was the week of Thanksgiving. It was 2 days before Thanksgiving. And then I called my doctor all while sitting on the toilet still. And she's like, you need to get to town right now. So she's like, are you feeling okay? You dizzy? Is your husband there? And he had left for work, and he works 30 miles away. And so I was home alone at this. And so I was like, okay, hung up the phone with her. I'm like, I got to get to Bismarck, but I'm bleeding. What do I do? And so it was just I don't remember much, to be honest with you. I remember grabbing a towel. I think I grabbed my retainers. Yes, I'm that cheesy person who is very adamant about wearing my retainer every night. I vividly remember grabbing that, a towel to sit on in the car, and my cell phone. And I think that was all I grabbed. And I'm driving and she's like, and my OB calls back and she's like, I'm sending a helicopter. And I was like, no, like I'm driving. I got this. I'd kind of like, okay, got to do this, got to do this. She's like, I am sending a helicopter. Where are you at? And I was like, well, I'm almost to the town where my husband works at. She's like, I'm sending a helicopter there. And I know from my daily job how long a helicopter takes to get dispatched in there. And I know how long it takes me to drive there. And so I kind of argued with her and I was like, I know I can get there fast. And she's like, Tara, this isn't about you. This is about this baby at this point. Like, I need to know that that baby is okay. Please just go to the ER. I'm sending a helicopter. I listened. And so if you remember from the beginning of my story, there was a gentleman, a doctor who filled in for us at the clinic where I work at. And he was the first person professionally that I had to share with that I was going through infertility. And he said, don't worry, I understand my daughter went through this. He actually fills in at the hospital in the community where my husband works. And he was working that day when I went there with my bleed. And so I remember telling him and trying to convince him too, like, Dr. O, like, let's just get an ambulance. Like, I know we can make it faster. They haven't even dispatched the helicopter yet. And he's like, okay, let's do that. And so we were going to do that. And then as they called dispatch for helicopter, they were ready in flight. Thankfully, it's a very long, it can take a process to get a helicopter out here. Just put it that way. And so I was trying to take care of my own healthcare, even in that moment. And so as a healthcare provider, it is so hard to turn that off and to let others take care of you. And even if you aren't a healthcare provider and you've been through so many things, you become the primary navigator and triage and lead person in your healthcare because you've had to learn how to do that. You've had to like take over your healthcare more than many other people that receive other diagnoses or diseases. Like, you have had to take the ship and the control of your healthcare. And it just breaks my heart. But nonetheless, I get in the helicopter. I am horrified the whole time just because I don't like flying in general, but I had a great team, a great staff. Everything was fine. The bleed slowed down eventually within a few hours. By the time I got to ultrasound, they couldn't even really find anything. What they said it was abrupted placenta. Basically, my placenta detaching a little bit and causing the bleed. I stayed in the hospital for one night, was ready to go home, and I started to spot again, like bright red spotting. So back in the hospital, I went for 2 more days and ended up I convinced my OB to not make me stay in the hospital the whole time as things were looking good, but I would stay in the town where she was located, which is 2 hours from where I live, from our home. So I was able to go home on a day trip here and there to get my belongings. And it was winter once again. So that was a big issue. She's like, you have to watch the weather. And I said, I'll watch it better than the weatherman. And after 4 weeks of staying, I was able to return home. And 2 weeks later, my water broke. In my head, I was going to do this natural pregnancy. I had listened to all these podcasts because I was like, that's it. One thing's going to go right for me. I'm doing this how I want to do it. It ended in an emergency C-section. So that did not pan out as expected either. I was like, okay, then I'm going to do breastfeeding. I'm going to make this work. And that was successful for me. I mean, I had thrush and some other things went wrong and all the things that could go wrong, but I was able to stick with that. I was able to have some control. I just feel like I never was able to gain control or excitement. I remember as my belly grew, I was able to be like, okay, this is more real. And I'm out of the first trimester and I had that 20-week ultrasound and I felt the load lessen, but to honestly say I was truly excited. I mean, I didn't get to do my nursery because I was thankful I got a baby shower. I didn't get to do the nursery because I was away during that time. So my husband put it together and it was awesome and amazing, but I missed out on that. And it was just like one thing after another, I felt kept coming at me.
Yeah.
And so
sorry to interrupt. I was just going to say, you and I have talked about this before, and I feel like your thoughts about the anxiety of pregnancy after loss is the way that you describe it is so relatable. So tell me a little bit more about that.
Yes. So you're coming out, pregnancy after infertility is a whole subcategory like we've talked about before, Allie. It's like you're coming out of a very traumatic time. I mean, infertility is trauma. there is actual mental impact that happens on you. So it is 100% normal to not be excited and overjoyed. And it also, let's reassure you, is normal for you if you are excited and you finally can enjoy the moment. Whatever way or bubble or section you fit into, it is normal, because you are not going to be like the natural woman, the average woman who has natural conception. And I feel your OB should understand that. They should treat you differently. Their staff should be more receptive to your emails and your questions and have more patience with you and not put you in the same pregnancy category as those who conceive naturally or those who do not experience a loss, multiple losses before becoming pregnant. You deserve to have a provider who gives you that extra attention, the extra ultrasound when you're nervous, the extra HCG when you're nervous, the extra progesterone check because you're nervous. You deserve a provider who will care for you with that.
I'd love to hear about the work that you're doing now, Tara, and just like how you have made what you went through into your passion and how you're helping people.
Yes. So I vividly remember 6 weeks after our son was born, I was sitting in the rocking chair holding him. And it hit me, like, what did we just go through? What from financial to insurance not covering this to the whole thing like came to fruition. And I was like, this is wrong. This is not right. During our, what I call a timeout of treatment, when we failed our IUIs before transitioning into IVF, I did a month-long health policy fellowship with the American Association of Nurse Practitioners. I spent 1 month in Washington, D.C. learning about health policy for nurse practitioners, but overall health policy experience. And it hit me that why can I not do something locally for infertility in North Dakota? So my journey of turning my hurt into hope with others was as a constituent bringing forward legislation in North Dakota in 2019 to increase access to insurance coverage for infertility and fertility preservation. The bill failed, but it got a lot of traction. It was the first time I feel like in the state of North Dakota, infertility was talked about in the media the way that it was. It was the first time discussion and insurance was brought to the table to openly talk about this. From that, I realized, I was like, okay, well, there's got to be some organizations here to help. And there was no organizations, no nonprofits supporting necessarily those directly here in North Dakota. And so I founded the first nonprofit and only nonprofit in North Dakota called Everlasting Hope. And it was to raise awareness on infertility, but support those going through it with support groups. Yeah, we do grants to help offset medical expenses. We do care packages. We've really grown. We've grown into South Dakota over the last year. And it's just been, I've made it what I wish I would have had from support and connections and community, as well as raising awareness to the public on infertility. And then in the last year, I have created a medical program, I guess you could call it a coaching program, and then a local telemedicine and 3-state business where I provide services and support for those going through infertility. So you can live anywhere with my coaching programs in the entire world and receive what I feel you need to properly move through the diagnosis of infertility, along with receiving support. And then locally in 3 states, as of now, a telemedicine business that does provide services for infertility, but also women's health care, and really just teaching women about PCOS, endometriosis, and just all the things, diving in miscarriage, to really provide a multidisciplinary team approach to women's health care. And so I just feel that I think of the Tara that I was before sharing my story and how many are still there, and just know that it's okay if you're not in a position to share, but to just lean into those of us, know that we're here to support you, no matter what stage of conception you're in or loss. Grieving is so normal and needed and necessary, and that there's a whole community here to support you.
All right. Thank you so much for listening, guys. Thank you, Tara, for that amazing story. We're so glad that you're doing well. I love that you have committed to helping people who have come after you. And that's one of the bonds that we have. We have that same mission too here and at Fertility Rally. So guys, if you want a free coaching session with Tara, head over to my Instagram at Infertile AF Stories, and you can find out all the details to enter to win. Also, if you are going through this and you feel alone, please check out Fertility Rally. We have so much stuff on our website. We also offer a membership monthly or annually. We open up again on December 1st, but if you want any details in the meantime, you can always reach out to me. So thanks for listening. Thanks for the support, and I will talk to you guys next time.
Finally, a bed that senses snoring and automatically responds. Meet the Ergo Smart Base from Tempur-Pedic, our first system that detects snoring, then automatically adjusts by raising the bed. Get your best sleep all night, every night. Now, save up to $500 on select adjustable mattress sets during the Tempur-Pedic Black Friday event. Get full offer details at TempurPedic.com.
Looking great is back in style. With the return of weddings, job interviews, and in-person dates, there's never been a better time to upgrade your wardrobe. Indochino's Black Friday event has their lowest prices of the year, with fully customized suits starting from just $2.99 and shirts from $45. Get away from the video calls and back into looking and feeling amazing. Indochino's Black Friday event runs from November 8th to the 29th. Order custom garments at Indochino.com or book an appointment at over 70 showrooms.